forgetting that it is an institution laden with responsibilities. And remember, the reason why we call it an institution is that it's based on certain responsibilities, rules, and regulations that has to be carried out, within the ambit of your relationship. And it is also a relationship that you go into with a contract. It's not a relationship you go into. I mean, we have boyfriend and girlfriend. It's a relationship. Friendship is a relationship. All these things, they're relationships. But marriage is different. Why? Because there's a contract written, to back it up. For a marriage to exist and to continue, right, there needs to be a contract. And that contract is not just the Islamic religion that believes in that. I think generally marriage is backed up by one solid thing, and that is the contract. And that is why you see it is very difficult for people, especially here in this part of the world. I would say it's still very difficult for people to just walk away from marriages, unlike most Western worlds, where, well, they will just say, okay, fine, I'm not really interested anymore, and they're off. So within the ambit of Islam, first we have to know that marriage is a sacred institution. And the second thing we have to know is that it is so beloved to Allah, because it's a part of our being. It is not an aside. The reason why we're given birth by our parents, and they take care of us for a while, is so that they can gently teach us a lot of things before we go into our own marriage, right? It's the natural order that Allah has put, around, right? And remember as well that, when we get married, we form a family, and that family is a micro unit, it's a subset of the ummah. And we have a fragmented family. What happens is that we surely will have a fragmented ummah, which is something we do not want. Another thing, of course, is that we should know that we're always battling with shaitan when it comes to everything in our lives, more so our marriages. And why is this? We read in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when shaitan was begging Allah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed him and all his vicegerents, to damnation in Jahannam, he begged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah answered him that he would trick us, he would do everything possible to make our life difficult, so that we will derail from the path of truth, we'll derail from the path of Allah. So we have to all put all these things in mind. And because we're Muslims, we should know that all these things are real and they're true. And we see it, in our daily dealings, with ourselves, with any relationship we have. If we're not careful, the whistle of shaitan will take over. And if you're not careful, your marriage is gone. Relationship you have with friends and families, could also be gone. So my dear brothers and sisters, you have to know that, Allah has placed a lot of importance on marriage, and it behoves us to be deliberate about keeping this marriage, intact, and making it, a safe haven, not just for us as a couple, but for also our children. So back to your question, how would we, could you go over the question again?
So the question was, what are the signs of a marriage that is in trouble?
Okay, the first thing you have to know is that for anything to be in trouble, something is key, and that is conflict. We cannot run away from the fact that conflict is the root cause of all discords in all marriages. And what is conflict? Conflict is imbalance in your thoughts, imbalance in the union of your of your relationship, imbalance. Please, can you shut the door, please? Thanks. Sorry, imbalance in everything that you do. If there's an imbalance in communication, imbalance on expectations, imbalance in financial matters, imbalance in intimacy, you realize that most of the time you would not have any other thing but conflict. So I've find some of the things that called the warning signs, and the first warning sign is usually communication. And if communication is not well put together within a marriage, every other thing will follow. because it is through communication you understand yourself financially. It is through communication you understand yourself, when it comes to intimacy and emotions. It is through communication you understand expectations. You express expectations, you express gratitude, and without communication, all these things are broken off. So yes, the first cardinal thing definitely is communication, and we have something called unmet expectations. Like I always tell people, marriage is a contract, and the contract really leans on the woman. For you to express yourself in a contract, what are your expectations within this marriage? That is not to say that the man should not also write what his expectations are. But more importantly for the woman, why? Because when you enter into marriage, what happens is that your husband is the leader and is the is your imam, and you follow the imam. So most of the things he says, right, if you're not careful, may become law on you if you do not have good communication, and if you have not expressed your expectations beforehand. So it is very important for us to notice. Sorry. It is very important for us to know that without communication, unmet expectations, will just be a shadow, right? So what I advocate is that we do premarital counseling, and we express our expectations, especially, like I said, the women. And what do we express? This could come, from innermost needs, the kind of marriage you envision, the amount of children you want, the fact that you want to be engaged as a woman, to work gainfully and to be part of a wholesome family, a wholesome marriage that is both enabling and emotionally balanced. So some of these expectations, of course, would delineate a lot of conflicts. Conflicts often arise when spouses have different expectations that are not met, or they are not expressed regarding roles sometimes, regarding responsibilities sometimes, and the need within the marriage. So some of the needs within the marriage, of course, will be, intimacy. And intimacy and emotional disconnect is another pointer, we have to look into when marriages, wants to go sour. Emotional distancing is usually the pointer, when a marriage wants to go sour. A wife could distance herself from emotionally from the husband, or vice versa. And emotional distancing is really horrible, because if you distance yourself emotionally from your husband or wife, it means that emotion is going to be met somewhere else, right? Either you meet it with friends, it doesn't have to be cheating really, but those emotional differences, if you meet it elsewhere, it means that, you have incapacitated your marriage. The need that you're supposed to get within the marriage is being met outside, and that shouldn't be. So that is, a red flag, when it comes to then physical intimacy. Of course, I mean, going into physical intimacy, we have to understand that some of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has created marriage is for us to explore physical intimacy legally, the halal way, and we have to understand also that for the man and the woman, we have different drives. For men, their drives, they say, is more than that of a woman, generally speaking. But for some women, it is more than those of their wives, husbands. So it is very important that we understand the intimacy part of marriage as being a crucial bedrock of any Islamic marriage. And when it comes to Islam, we should not shy away from the problems in the bedroom. When people shy away from the problems in the bedroom, it ends up like the other unmet expectations, you seek emotions to be fulfilled outside. And this could lead to, like I said earlier, it could lead to cheating, it could lead to it could lead to watching pornography, it could lead to, it could lead to masturbation, it could lead to a lot of things that, will make each person independent of the other person. And that is not the essence of marriage. The essence of marriage is interdependence, to depend on each other, in terms of strength and weaknesses, and all these areas carry deep emotional significance. Another matter, of course, is the financial issue within marriages. Disagreements over spending, disagreements over money habits, disagreements over financial priorities can lead to conflicts that affect not only the couple's financial stability, but also their emotional well-being, right? Some men will say that, well, I don't want my wife to work, and I'll take very good care of her, and so on and so on. And he goes on to believe that, whatever I make is mine. It is my prerogative to give my wife or not to give. Now, the woman stays at home, making sure the home is a place and a haven of peace, and the man goes out to work, so he forgets that it's a balance. Whatever he earns really belongs to the two of them. And whatever she does, actually, it's not just hers. Taking care of the children is not just hers. Taking care of the home is not just for our own benefit. It's for the benefit of the whole family, and especially the husband. So when there's a discrepancy in the understanding that whatever the man earns or whatever a woman earns, right, where should it be? Islam has made it known to us that even if your wife works, right, the money belongs to her. It is out of her own magnanimity that she would decide, to chip into the purse of the family as at large, and so on and so on. And sometimes you have women that are better blessed financially than their husbands, and this also causes a lot of problems of the marriage. So by and large, these four things are very crucial. Like I said earlier, like all relationship, marriage is a path that is marred with conflicts. Conflict is a natural part of relationship, and in marriage, they can be particularly complex due to the fact that it comes with emotions. And remember that our emotions cannot be seen. Emotions can be felt but not be seen. And if things cannot be seen, right, most often times the other person can either minimize it, or even do as if it does not exist at all. So therein lies some of the root causes, of discord in marriages, and some of the pointers that anybody can see as being a big problem within their marriage.
Thank you so much for that. I think you've covered so much just within that question. You kind of even touched on, answered our next question here, which is what are the most common causes of marriage, which I think you've spoken about. So the imbalances in intimacy, finances, expectations, and the likes. So I'll just move on to the next question we have after that, which is, how can I communicate better with my spouse?
Well, the thing with communication is not with your lips alone, and we keep on feeling that it is only with the lips we communicate with. Communication is huge. We communicate with eyes, we communicate with our body language, we communicate with intimacy, we communicate with gifts, we communicate with emotions. But a lot of the time, what happens is that we put a lot of pressure on verbal communication. Verbal communication is key. There's no doubt about it. I'm not pushing it aside, but that is not the only form of communication, that you can use in expressing pleasure, or expressing disagreement, or even expressing this, gratitude, to people. And in learning to explore some of these means of communication is where we have a lot of problems. People feel that if I have a disagreement or a discontentment with what my wife or husband is doing, it has to always be verbalized. It has to always be verbalized. Sometimes it's not verbalization. I'll give you an example. There's a newly married couple, and they just had a baby. And of course, remember that having a baby is as new to the husband as is as new to the wife. Even if you have partly taken care of your younger siblings, it's not the same. You didn't breastfeed. You didn't have to take the baby's bath. You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to take care of your husband while you're also taking care of the baby. So it is really draining, within the marriage. And, you know, so if you come home as a husband and your wife is still, she has not taken a bath, for instance, you have a very cranky baby. You know, I remember when I had my first child, honestly, I'm crying as well because he's always crying. He won't sleep in the nights. During the day, he sleeps a bit and starts crying. Of course, he had extended colic that I did not even understand. I didn't know what was going on. I took him to the hospital. Of course, he wasn't crying in the hospital. So there was nothing they could give him because it was just a baby. I don't sleep in the nights. I had to sleep during the day. I tried to feed him. He's really crying, you know, and this is the first child. This is me all alone, you know, when my husband goes to work. And it comes back expecting magic, expecting hot food, expecting me putting a smile on my face. I'm completely distraught and completely, you know, I don't even know what is going on. Do you understand? So now a man comes in and sees this continuously, right? The first thing he wants to do is, what are you doing? Is it not just one baby that you're taking care of since morning? Just one baby. And you cannot clean the house. You cannot make food for me before I come back. Now, expressing this verbally, right, you're killing the emotion of the wife. And at this point in time, she has nothing to tell you because you've belittled her emotions. You've belittled the fact that she's been taking care of this baby, that she does not understand what was wrong, well, what is wrong with him, you know, and you've belittled the fact that she's putting so much effort in trying to make this baby okay, while you just sit back. And in the night, of course, she's still going to wake up while you sleep, and in the morning she has to make your food. Now, there was the issue of a couple, and he saw this several times. Come home, no food, you know, see his wife on the couch, sleeping with the baby on her chest. And he didn't know what to do. You know, he was really, and he knew that this is not the time to start calling people and telling them this and this and this are the things I found my wife. So the first thing he did, you know, after weeks, was when he comes in, you know, wife says, Salaam alaikum, and he replies back cheerfully, Wa alaikum salam, place in the kitchen. He starts washing the plates, little by little, right? Initially, the wife said, oh, fine, thank you for washing the plates. But then it was consistent, and the wife felt a bit uncomfortable, you know, so she couldn't put the baby down, joins him, you know, and they started this together, right? Initially, you know, he could have, you know, mounted or verbalized his displeasure, but he did it in a non-verbal way. And luckily, the woman was also one that understands non-verbal cues. You know, so she understood that, oh God, this man is really not comfortable with this. And that's why when he comes in, he doesn't ask for food anymore. He just goes to the kitchen, start cleaning the kitchen, putting things and left all about the house, you know, away. This worked. And when they were washing plates together, he was able to nicely tell her that I will be very happy if we can clean some of these things. And then she was also able to tell the husband that this and this and these are the things that went on when you were not at home. And he appreciated more because he didn't know, right? So now it was easy for him to put in a bit of effort in the morning to get some things done before he leaves for work. And, you know, calls the wife, are you going to be able to make dinner? Oh, no, not today. Okay, fine, I'll get something. You see, this is communication, not always, you know, mounting pressure on your wife or mounting pressure on your husband when it comes to finances as well. Because sometimes some husbands, I've seen quite a lot of husbands that will lose their job, but they cannot come home to tell their wives that they've lost their job because they don't know the verbal attack they're going to meet. So you see, verbal communication is important, right? But the mode in which you're going to speed it out is very, very important. The mode in which you're going to say some of these things, very, very crucial, or else you're going to cause a fragment, you know, within your marriage. I remember that, you know, all this conflict, what it does is that it gives you emotional distress. You know, frequent conflict can lead to emotional distress, you know, for both partners. You know, during this conflict both of you have, you go through stress, you go through anxiety, and sometimes it might lead to depression. And then it's been found out that, you know, when you worry so much, you bring in a lot of disease into your body because all your hormones, they go on overdrive, always on overdrive. And what happens, you can have autoimmune diseases, which is really horrible, you know, for our system. Another thing, of course, you know, poor communication, like I said, There's so many ways we can communicate. And I'm re-emphasizing that it's not only verbal communication we should engage in, we should engage in other forms of communication so that we do not mar the relationship we have with our spouses. Sometimes verbal can work. Sometimes, the way you relate, to your husband or your wife, the things you say, how you say it, the tone. Tone is very important. Yoruba will say, "Belelako, ulabo." Sure, you understand? It is very, very important for you to use the right tone. You might use even a very sedate tone, but the tone is laden with sarcasm. And the other person takes it wrong. So that is why, sometimes when you really want to speak, you really have to be very, very careful, especially, in a place where both of you are highly emotional. Now, the imbalance in or poor communication can also lead to physical health. Just like I said, emotional distress, it can lead to physical health. That is persistent conflict. That is poor communication. Can take a toll on the physical health, contributing to things like blood pressure. You see young people having blood pressure because of the worries their spouses, have put them through or are putting them through, right? So it is very, very important for us to know that, see, we're in this together, not to fight each other, right? But to be together to make things work, to be together to make ourselves happy. Yes, we're going to have children, but the first things first. First things first, we're more important. We must take care of our emotional needs. We must take care of everything, either through verbal communication or otherwise. This is very, very important. Thank you.
Keep forgetting to mute myself. Jazakallah Karen for that. Thank you so much, Ma. That was a very well-rounded, and I think it covered on everything that you needed to cover on in terms of communications. So the next question we have here is, how can I improve the intimacy between me and my spouse?
Well, you see, the thing with intimacy is that is very personal, is very adaptive, is very generic as well. Because what is intimacy really? You and I, as if you're married, we know what intimacy is all about. But the key thing is, what do I want in intimacy? How do I want this intimacy? How does it come across? How do I want you to sell it to me? Because at the end of the day, we're customers to each other. And how do you if you have a business and you understand what I mean, how do you treat your customer? Take your husband as a customer, take your wife as a customer. But if I want intimacy for my wife, how do I do? Do I just go in? Right. If I'm the wife, how do I seek intimacy for my husband? Do I look tattered? Am I smelly? What are the things that he likes? What are the things that prompts him into wanting to have intimacy with me? Remember that it is not just, before arousal, let's us even assume, and it's not even assumption, it's real, that men are easily aroused by their wives, in general, right? But let us even assume that this man is not really pleased with you. What do you do as a woman if you want him to have intimacy with you? Like I said, going back to customer relationship, this is a customer relationship affair. If I have my husband and I need intimacy with him, what am I going to do? I don't know your husband, neither do you know mine. But for some people, they will say, okay, fine. I will wear lingeries. I would clean myself up properly. I will say good things. If for that whole week, everything he does is just right. And if he does something wrong, there's a way I'm going to tell him that it's not even going to, cause any infraction between the two of us. So it depends. It is really very, what am I going to say? It's really very personal. And understanding your customer is very key, or else you not give them the kind of product they want. If I am making ice cream, for instance, and I sell ice cream and people come and buy me my ice cream, what I leave a note behind, I leave a form on my table for reviews and feedback. How have I done? Some people say, well, the ice cream is very creamy and everything, but it's too sweet. It means I want to reduce sugar. Or some people will say, oh, well, everything is so balanced and everything, but it's too expensive. So I'm thinking, can I reduce cost or can I reduce size? Is it that I'm going to reduce the size of my ice cream, or is it that I'm going to reduce the cost? If I reduce the cost, will I not compromise on the quality of the ice cream. So it is very, very important to look first as our husbands or our spouses, as our customers. What am I going to do? How am I going to ask him? What have I done? You have some men that when they have intimacy with their wives, or some women who have intimacy with their husbands, they will ask, "Are you okay? Were you satisfied?" It's like giving your husband food and he says, "I want more." Or giving your husband food, he has cleaned the plate and you just pack the plates. You didn't even ask him, "I see you've finished everything. Do you want me to be a bit more?" You understand? So all these things contribute to having wonderful intimacy. It's not the sex per se. Permit my word. It is not the sex per se, because it fails to be an intimacy if it's sex. It is more than sex. It is an expression. Intimacy is more of expression of a lot of things. It could be of love. It could be of respect. It could be of trust. All these things are all wrapped up into intimacy. But how do we do it? It becomes something that, we have to be very truthful to ourselves. We have to adapt whatever is to what our marriages are. I don't know who your husband is, but you have to know the kind of husband you have to know the kind of intimacies that he likes. Some people like having intimacy in the dark. You have to really, like I said, go back to the customership. Understand your husband, understand your wife. The spouse is very, very important. When you're giving anybody something, you have to understand how they like it. How do they like it? So long as they like it the way it does not contravene with this tenants, then it is fine. You have to reorient yourself and make sure you're able to deliver to your customer exactly what they want. Because when you deliver to your customer exactly what they want, it means you're going to get the cash, or else your customers will just run away. I hope you get what I mean.
I get what you mean. I think everyone understands. Thank you so much for that. So moving on to the next question, we have here, how can we resolve our conflicts peacefully?
Well, marry yourself. Alhamdulillah, we're all Muslims, and the essence of Islam is peace. The essence of getting married is to find peace. If you get married for love, you realize that, it is love always undulates. It is like a spectrum. And some days it's very wonderful, some days it's not so wonderful, some days it's really deep. And most days it's just normal. Right. And it is very, very crucial for you to understand who you're dealing with. Please, could you go about the question again?
So the question was, how do we resolve conflicts in a marriage?
Fine. Yes, exactly. So, knowing your husband is very important. You have to know, sorry, I keep on saying husband because I'm a woman. Okay, fine. Know your spouse. Because yes, knowing your spouse is very, very important. And we belittle understanding our spouse. If you want to become an accountant, first of all, you're going to use 4 years in the university, right? You're going to now use about 2 or 3 years, depending on how sharp you are, to do your ICANN or ANAN, right? And then you now go to the internet, start searching for a job. When you get the job, they'll put you onto tutelage. Now, please count all these years. Now, the same thing goes for our spouses. We fail to learn them. We feel that when we get into the realms of marriage, it's fine. It's just going to be hunky-dory. But it's not always that way. And the best thing is to be very, very patient. Without patience, you can't get anything through. Without patience, you put a lot of things, in the front burner always. And you have a pile of things in the front burner and they will not get cooked. Now, I believe in dua, and because we're Muslims, Rasulullah has taught us, to always pray, to fix any problem, either marital problem, personal problem, religious problem, or even work-related problem. The first thing to go to is to go straight to Allah. And the best way to do it is, first of all, do a lot of istighfar, thank Allah and ask Him for guidance. And in everything we do, we have to be sincere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the sincerity of our hearts, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a pure heart. A pure heart does not mean that you're not going to transgress. A pure heart does not mean that you're not going to fall into error. No. A pure heart means that every time you do things, you're sincere with yourself and know that I'm wrong, right? And if you're not sure whether you're wrong or right, sometimes, all the time Allah knows this. So going to Allah in dua is very, very important. Do a lot of tahajjud, especially when you have conflicts, within your marriage. I always recommend that, because what this dua does is, first of all, it makes you very patient. It makes you sedate, because when you make such dua to Allah, I also encourage, because it's something that's very dear to you. You pray to Allah with tears in your eyes, and the tears also washes your heart as well. It washes it of ego, it washes it of a lot of things, and it makes you want to make things work. It would be wonderful, of course, if this system is not just one person doing it. It is you and your spouse that are doing the prayers, right? And it means that one person has to say no to their ego. I'm going to throw my ego away and I'm going to do what is right. Now we have to show empathy. Showing empathy and to de-escalate conflicts is very, very important. That is, you learn to control your anger. Always learn to control your anger. There's nothing we use anger for. Anger is like fire. Anywhere it gets into, it spoils it, it burns it out. And Rasulullah said, so somebody that came seeking advice from him, and he told him 3 times, and do not get angry. It means that we must, as much as possible, not get angry. And if you get angry, what in my own mind, if you get angry, it means that you feel you're better than the other person, or the other person is stupid, or and so on and so on. Wives get angry at their husbands, husband gets angry at their wives, because they feel, to first of all, have patience. Patience is key in any marriage. If you're going into marriage, please, you have to come with excess luggage of patience, right? Combine some of this, anger management tool with, a bit of psychology and strategy on emotional regulation. So you understand, learn to, regulate your emotions. Don't be overly angry, or don't be overly critical, of your spouse. Now, forgiveness is very healing. I don't know, most of the time when we hurt ourselves within marriages, I always feel that it is 2 ways. It is not possible that my husband would hurt me, for instance. I would say nasty words, at the end of the day, we're balanced. So it means that I have to apologize as much as he has to apologize. And most often times, it's one party apologizing, and we know who the party is. So first thing is that we have to learn to apologize to each other, always, when things go wrong. And the foolish person is the one that feels that, I didn't do anything wrong. Even if you do not do anything wrong, say sorry. Because sorry and apologies, it warms the heart. And the use of forgiveness, use forgiveness as a tool for healing. It heals your own heart too. Even your heart, that, I'm going to say sorry to this person, even if I didn't do anything. Or even if I think I didn't do anything. Because to him, I must have done something to hurt him. Now, always also try to foster positive environment within your marriage. That is an environment of free expression that is laden with respect for the other person's feelings. If you do not, have, respect for the feelings of the other person, you talk brashly, and it hurts the other person.
Therefore,
Hello. You said something.
It wasn't me. I think someone had their mic unmuted. Please go on.
Okay. All right. So we have something called emotional regulation as well. Now, our emotions, like I said, emotions cannot be seen, like love, like what else? Like happiness. We only express this, either by being overly spunky, you just, when you want to express happiness, there's a way we do, we shout, there's a way our face looks like when we express happiness. And the same thing when we express anger. Sometimes when I'm angry with my kids, my son will say, "Mama, please straighten this place. I should straighten my forehead. He doesn't want to see this place all wrinkled up. So these are the ways we express, some of the feelings we have inside. But these feelings, right, the other person might take it wrongly, especially if they're negative feelings. So we have to learn to regulate our emotions. The same thing with intimacy emotions. Sometimes your wife, your husband or your wife, right, they're not in the mood for intimacy, right? If you do not know how to regulate your emotions, what will happen is conflict. There's going to be conflict. You will fight, and at the end of the day, both of you are going to be unhappy. The reason why you want the intimacy in the first instance is not just to gratify yourself, but also to gratify the other person. When the other person is not willing, what it means is that you should come to an amicable arrangement, right? And that is not to say some women that will say, well, I don't want to have intimacy for 6 months. Of course, that is overbearing, right? For young marriage, most oftentimes, men can have intimacy every day. And that could be a lot for a woman. And that is why sometimes I'm saying that, okay, fine, have a middle ground to understand how she's feeling with intimacy. Having intimacy every day could be okay for a woman, for a man, but it might not be okay for a woman. So, understanding how to regulate your emotions, it's very important, within a marriage. And I always encourage people to consider therapy. That is post-marriage counseling. When you have issues within your marriage, it is okay for you to look for people within your family to discuss it with. But the problem here is that when you discuss these issues with people in your family, it doesn't stay with one person. It goes on, and people know that you have issues. So you want an independent party, except, of course, you have very, very wonderful adults that know how to not keep secrets, but it's not a matter of secrecy now, but to understand that whatever emotions you're feeling, whatever problems you're feeling or you're going through within your marriage, and you share with me, seeking advice, it should live with me and not with any other person, except, of course, you decide to share with someone else. So it is very important that you seek help. Another thing I always encourage is for you to read. If you don't read, I mean, the kind of life we have now is a life that's made a lot of things easy. If you do not feel like reading, and watch videos of situations that aligns, with your problem. Find ways to attack this problem headlong, but oftentimes also have a partnership with your spouse so that it is not just you fighting a battle. Both of you can fight the battle together and win. Now continuous nurturing of a relationship with a lot of kindness. And the thing with kind words, if you have kind words to say to people, people are generally going to like you. So now imagine if you have kind words to say to your husband. He's leaving home and you're praying for him. May Allah guide you. May Allah bring you back safely. May Allah enlarge your coast. May Allah open all doors of opportunity and success for you. You're saying this every time. Now your husband sends you money. You type back, thank you, or come, you worry me. May Allah continue to bless you for me. May Allah grant you Jannah. These are kind words that are going to, make your husband inclined towards doing good things to you. And the same thing vice versa for the man. Your wife does this, and this for you. You do things that will make her very happy. And the first thing we always advise is kind words. Kind words are free. They're inside your mouth. All you have to do is conjure it, open your mouth. But the truth is, be as sincere as possible. Another thing, of course, Rasulullah encourages us to do is to gift each other things, exchange gifts, right? It doesn't have to be something humongous. You're coming home and you're thinking, chicken. Let me take some chicken home to my baby. Or usually you're coming home and thinking, God, I think I should buy some fruits. There's some fruits he really likes, the way they package them. You do things for each other willingly and lovingly, and do not expect anything in return. And the unfortunate thing is that when we do acts of kindness to each other, we always expect things in return. Don't expect anything. If it does for you, fine. If it doesn't, but if it hurts you so much, please do not fail to express, your feelings in the most respectful way. Another thing I feel, that should be done is regularly expressing appreciation, gratitude, have an attitude of gratitude, within your marriage. Every little thing, you must appreciate it. And Allah has told us, right, that we are not grateful as a race. We are not grateful to him. We're not grateful to him. So sometimes we have situations where the husband is the one going to work, bringing in the money. You have to learn to be appreciative. You have to say thank you, not just thank you alone. There are million ways to say thank you. Some of it could be intimacy. Some of it could be, cuddling. Some of it could be, holding each other so tight, just to show and express gratitude. And sometimes, your husband loves, certain meal. To show gratitude, sometimes you cook those meals just and let him know, I'm to get to like any please, lady, and be jovial with each other. Not practical jokes that are going to hurt each other, but jokes that are going to bring smile into his face. Like I said earlier, read as much as possible. Collaboration with your husband is very, very important. Compromise. There's some things you have to leave. It's not everything you want, you get. When we pray to Allah, everything we want, He gives us. Is everything we want. It might not materialize now. Is everything. Our husbands, our wives, they're not Allah. They can only give you to the tune of what they're able to. If you want to break them, that is when your expectations are going to be so high. Dim your expectations. And then another thing, of course, that I always advocate, it's patience. Patience is not sitting and waiting. It is not foreseeing. It is looking at the night and seeing the day. Lovers are patient and note that the moon needs time to become full. So it's very important for you to know that, you have married yourselves. You cannot be what you want in one day or 1 year or 2 years, but it is metamorphosis. It's a journey. Marriage is a journey from the beginning to the very end. And that journey is going to last as long as Allah wants it. So whichever way you want to, you really have to be deliberate about making sure your marriage is worth it, right? Invest in your marriage. Investment in financial in financial documents, investment in foreign currency, we do a lot of investment in property, we do a lot of investment, but a lot of us do not find time to invest in our marriages. Investment in marriages are far, far, far more beneficial than investing in all of these things. And how do we invest in our marriages? And some of the things we have said earlier on, that we have to learn to put the other person in our shoes. We have to be a fool for the other person, right? Rumi said, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise. I am changing myself, right? A lot of the time we want to change the other person. We're always complaining, he's not this, she's not that, he's not this and that and that. But how about you? Have you sat down to think about yourself and the things you're doing to make the marriage not work very well? So if you're a wise person, before you point accusing fingers to your spouse, remember that you're also part of the problem. And for you to remove yourself away from the problem, you have to first of all leave the other person and look inwards and see ways of changing yourself. Another thing, of course, is that if you will become a pilgrim on the road of love, right, the first condition is that you must make yourself humble as dust and ashes. A lot of us are not humble. Some women are not. And it behoves a woman to be humble to her husband. It behoves a woman to be humble to her husband. It behoves a man to be a leader, but to show humility as well. A lot of us go into marriages, with a lot of ego, men more especially than women, that I will not do this. When the man enters marriage, there's so many rules that he has never shared with anybody that is going to bring into the walls of a marriage. Some men will say, I don't eat second dish food. Some men will say this, they will say a lot of things that is going to be very hard on the woman. And all they think is just about themselves. Marriage is not about you, it's about us. Not one person, not two people, but the whole family, however big your family is. It is very important that your task is not to seek love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against love. That is, what are the things you're building against making your marriage work? All these things are things that we hardly ask ourselves. We want to be fulfilled, right? But we're not fulfilling to ourselves. The moment you start changing yourself, your spouse will start changing because it will be obvious. A man of good character, if you marry someone that has very wonderful character, it will not take you time, to change. It doesn't always take you time to change. If you do not change, what happens is that, people will take your husband from you, right? So it is very, very important that, first of all, we have to build good character, know that this marriage, we have to be deliberate about it. Conflicts are going to come, disagreements will come. These are not the problem. Disagreement is not the problem. Conflict is not the problem. There's a manner and way in which we resolve the conflict that is a problem. We have humility, if we have compassion towards each other, if we know that to build a marriage is not just about ourselves or self-love alone, but to love others as if we're loving ourselves. That is the only time I believe that your marriage is going to work and last for so many years.
Jazakumullah, Karen. Thank you so much for that response. Can I just ask that everyone in the meeting please send any questions that they have for our speaker in the chat box? I've already seen some questions, but please, if you have any more, please just keep sending and we'll take them once we round up. So moving on to the next question we have here is, what is the role of forgiveness in marriage? I know you kind of touched on it previously that you have to come into marriage with excess patience and forgiveness.
Yes. Okay, so one of the things that a Muslim asks from Allah is to forgive. If you ask Allah to forgive you, are you willing to forgive others? That's the first question. Because the more you're forgiving others, the more Allah is completely willing to forgive you. We must not.
How was it?
So for me, I strongly believe that coming into a marriage with a heart full of forgiveness is knowing that your spouse is not perfect and that Allah has not made either of you perfect. That anything that is done in error or even intentionally, right, you should be willing to wait it out and willing to forgive. And what is this life anyway? It is very short and brief. Very short and very brief. And before we know it, all is gone. And if you come with a heart that is full of contempt towards the person you claim you love, then ask me, how will the marriage work? We're going to definitely hurt each other. There's no way, we can't do without it. That is why we're here. We're here because we're human. We're here to make a way into paradise. We're here so that Allah will test us with different things. And if you want something from Allah, ask yourself, can you give that same thing to someone else? Even in the smallest fraction, especially for someone you claim you love, the person you claim you want to live the rest of your life with. So the importance of forgiveness in marriage is how am I going to equate it? It's like here, we can't do without oxygen. A marriage cannot do without forgiveness. Embedded in every nook and corner. Anywhere you check, you must find forgiveness there. If you twist the marriage, forgiveness should squeeze out. And that is the beauty of any marriage. Willingness to forgive. And knowing that every recourse is to Allah. And not, because I've seen people being really hurt and they say they leave their husbands to Allah. Instead of them to say, I forgive you willingly. They will say, I leave you to God to deal with. Either when they cheat, all these things, even the smallest thing, I know that we're going to go through a lot in our lives. And sometimes, Allah is going to put us through challenges that are going to shake us. And it will just shake us in a way that if we're not careful, Shaitan will take charge. It will take charge of our lips and our utterances. So we should try as much as possible to learn that this is a key factor when you're entering in a relationship, especially that of marriage.
Jazakumullah Karen. Thank you so much for that. I think we'll take 2 more questions, then we would go to Q&A. So next question I have here is, what are the steps involved in fixing a marriage?
Well, I mean, the steps are, we have smartphones now, Shay. And, I noticed something on my phone. When I wake up in the night to pray, right, the first thing I click is my Quran app. It is so smart that when I wake up in the night, I don't have to search for it. When I pull if I say find, the first thing it brings out is my Quran app. Now, after that time, it does not bring out the Quran app again. It doesn't. Why? Because it has learned that this app, this is when I use it. This app, this is when I use it, and so on and so on. Right? My phone is so smart that he knows the amount of times I go to social media. He knows the ones I go to more. Right? So it prompts me. It is so smart that it has my financial history and how much I spend every day. Right? It is so smart that if I pour my thoughts out, right, it can bring it out for me, just at one calling. And it is so smart that when I'm checking pictures, it will show me the history of my pictures and the thing I did 5 years ago on this day. See how smart a phone is. Now, where people are now going to smart marriages, how can we make our marriages smart? That is exactly what you're asking me, in other words. Now, the goal of a marriage is to solve puzzles, right? To solve conflicts. Out of solving conflicts, we find joy. We find happiness. Because, happiness is not free. When you get it in small doses, conflict will come. And it will make you fight for that happiness again, right? It will make you work for that happiness again. And then you feel it again. And then new conflict to come, right? Now, having in mind that a smart marriage is meant to solve conflicts associated with marriages. And all this conflict, like I said, is individual conflicts. Some of them are generic, and the generic things I told you earlier, the financial part of it, the communication part of it, the intimacy part of it, the anger, all these things. But from one person to the other, you hear different stories, right? So ask yourself, how can I make my marriage smart? The first thing is understanding the other person. That's the first thing. The first thing after prayer. I put a lot of premium on prayer. Rasulullah said, Rabbana, he always encourages us to say this prayer, that is the Rabbana ablana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurratan a'yunin waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Rabbana hab lana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurratan a'yunin waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. So there's some prayers you do consistently, and Allah is not deaf. So first of all, call out all the prayers that will strengthen your marriage. Some of these prayers are embedded in the Quran, some of them they are hadith, and some of them are the ones you're going to craft yourself. You craft your prayers based on your situation. You craft your prayers based on the kind of challenges you're facing within your marriage. So it is important for you as an individual to understand that my marriage it has a face. You know that if you look at all of us, there's so many commonalities. We all have noses, we all have lips, we all have ears and eyes, except of course for some few people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did not give. But generally, these things are there. But they're there in different shapes and sizes. That is why you people can say someone is ugly and someone is pretty. But if you look at that person really, does the person not have nose? Yeah, she has. Does he not have eyes? He has. Does she not have ears? She has. So what makes this person pretty or beautiful? Now translate that into your marriage. Every marriage has the same sort of problems, but those problems are completely unique to you, depending on how you want to look at it. So look at your problems and be smart about it. Be truthful to yourself about it. Do not expect your marriage to be one straight road. I always tell people that, if you say some things, long enough, you will believe it and it will become yours. It's just like when you say positive things, and a lot of positivity. When you say positive things to your husband, he believes long enough and it starts becoming that thing, right? The same thing for our children. And these are the things that we have been advised, to do. I remember in the time of Rasulullah, there was an hadith about a man that came to Rasulullah. And the man asked, Rasulullah asked, what's your name? I think he said fire. What's your son's name? This is me trying to paraphrase it. Maybe a ball of fire. And everything about them was fire. Rasulullah said, go home, your house is burning. Because everything, when you keep on repeating something for so long, it becomes a part of you. So try as much as possible to make it a mantra within your marriage that this marriage is going to be successful. It is successful, it will keep on getting successful. Remember that conflict and argument is not the reason why marriages break. It is how we handle conflicts and management that determines whether your marriage is going to break off or is going to continue. So be positive with your husband, have positive inclination, even towards yourself. Say positive things, towards yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you are as you think of me. You are as you think of me. If you think I'm the most merciful, Bismillah, I'm always merciful to you. So in your marriage, have a mantra of that this marriage that I've contracted, that we have contracted with each other, it is going to be a success. It is a success and it will lead us to Jannah Firdaus. So that is having a smart marriage, thinking about it, saying it, encouraging each other to say those things that are positive towards each other, right? Because it becomes a part of you. I've seen people that, they're so positive. When they're sad, it doesn't even show that they're sad because all the things they're saying are positive things. And as a Muslim, that's the way we're supposed to be. Rasulullah said that whatever belongs to you will never pass you by. If it does not belong to you, even if it's in your hand, somebody else will take it. So whatever challenge we face in this life, right, we must know that, God, this is a test from Allah. Having that in your mind, right, should gear you towards being deliberate about succeeding. Having that in your mind should gear you also deliberately into warding off Shaitan's evil suggestions. So within the marriage, there's so many things that is all wrapped in. We think of the things we think about our husband. If you think negative of your husband, you sit and you think, oh, this person, I don't even know what he's doing, and so on and so on and so on and so on in your mind, right? When he comes back, it is that attitude you're going to use in relating with him, attitude of mistrust in your mind that you concocted in your heart, and that is not happening. I've seen people that their husbands or their wives were cheating, and they will say, never. She would never cheat. It is only because this man kept on, or this woman kept on saying, my wife will never cheat me, my husband will never, to their faces, that they stopped doing what they did. So it is very important for us to know this. Conflict does not predict divorce. Now we have something called stonewalling. That is not talking, putting your husband, and rather talking to somebody else, bearing your heart to somebody else apart from your husband. Having intimate relationship, not intimacy now, intimate relationship, even with a woman, that you call your best friend, other than your husband. All these things diminish the intensity of your marriage. Having secrets and telling secrets to other than your husband. And I don't believe in having secrets, I don't believe in telling people secrets because it ceases to be secret anyway. But then you see the women folks and the men folks doing most of these things. And we have something called avoidance. There's a situation on ground and both of you are avoiding to treat the situation. It's just like having, an ulcer in your hand, that is a wound in your hand. And each time you do as if it does not exist, all the things they told you not to put there, you're putting there. Of course, it's going to get worse. And we have something called contempt. That is thinking badly about the other person. If you marry somebody and all you can do is think badly about the person, I don't know whether you're meant to be in that marriage or outside of it. You really have to change your thought process about the person you're married to. Very, very important. And we have something called criticism. We have positive criticism, and we have criticism on its own that is completely negative and tears the person down. Nobody's perfect, like I said earlier, but to give positive criticism, it takes a long time. You cannot just open your mouth immediately and say, this is the way you are. You have to be very gentle, very, what word am I going to use? Very cautious of how you're going to break it, such that the other person will not take it wrongly or take it badly. You see, at the end of the day, when you're in a relationship, you're trying as much as possible to make the other person comfortable in their own skin. If you're with your husband and you're not comfortable, he's always criticizing you. You're doing great yourself, and you saw me before you married me. Why are you telling me all the time that I'm too short? And because he's telling you that you're too short, you have bought all the highest 6-inch shoes so that you at least be elevated. It doesn't change a thing. If you cannot accept some things that you cannot change, there's some things you can never change. I can't change the way my lips are. I can't change the way my nose. I can't change all these things. You understand? Perhaps I can change some things, but not all of them. Perhaps I can reduce the way I express myself facially. There's some things I can change, but there's some things I definitely cannot change. I can't change my height, right? So some of these things you will have to learn to accept yourselves as you are. Some men will criticize their wives to the point of the way their breast is hanging, the way their bum is. All these things, they kill the love and the intimacy and the companionship within marriage. And then we have something called silent treatment. Your spouse does something wrong, and all you do for 1 month, if not more, is when he talks to you, you don't answer him. When he says salam, you don't answer him. All this will predict divorce. You have to learn to isolate problems. Problems, no matter how big they are, isolate them, such that they're not part of your lives. You treat the problem like you're treating this thing I'm holding. This is the problem. It is not the whole of me. So if I'm going to continue with my husband, I drop the problem and we continue talking. If you want to treat that problem, we'll bring it up again and start looking at it. See, this is what we did. This is what we did. This is what we should not do. And at the end of the day, you drop it again. If you make a problem the whole of your entire relationship, then you never have a happy marriage. And it's a precursor to divorce. It might eventually lead to divorce. Learn how to disagree in a way that helps you fall in love again. You can disagree. And in disagreeing, you can still love each other a lot. Like I said earlier, learn to compromise, but it's not everything you are going to compromise. There's some things that are sacrosanct to you. You let him know those things. The things that you will not take and the things that he will not take, you respect those boundaries. Creating boundaries within marriage is very, very crucial. Understanding those boundaries are very important to the other person. And learning to keep them is wisdom. And that is the wisdom that is going to keep your marriage together. Now, creating smart families requires, you to use your head as well as your heart to make critical decisions before and during marriage. Marriage is an institution. Marriage is a relationship. Marriage, if you're going into it, have it in mind that you want to have it until death do you part. It's a wonderful thing. You can't go into marriage thinking that, okay, fine, I'm just going to leave him. That's the bad beginning for any marriage. And it could lead to divorce even before, you can say Jack Robinson. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Jazakumullah Karen. We'll just take the last one and then move on to the questions that we have in the chat box. So the last question we have here is, what are the warning signs that a marriage is beyond repair? At what point do you know that we have done everything we can and it's best that we just go our separate ways?
Well, no marriage is beyond repair. No marriage. The only reason why a marriage goes beyond repair is when both of them are unwilling to repair it. So when both parties are unwilling to repair, then it's beyond repair. That is it. If they're willing to repair it, right, no matter how botched up it is, it can still go on. But when the two parties say we cannot go on, right? And there's some other things, of course, that you have to look at. When we say that, all marriage are repairable, it means that even the problems within marriages, like abuse, all these things, we can find ways of abating them. There are counseling sessions, there are therapy sessions to make sure that the abused and the abuser, are brought to a certain level of understanding of, what they're putting the other people through and the other person, what they've gone through. That's why I said that everything is amendable. However, if both of them say that, no, we cannot go on, I cannot continue living my life like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has agreed to one thing, which of course is what he hates the most, and that is divorce. If there's need for divorce, then by all means, in the time of Rasulullah, we've seen women saying that, okay, fine, I cannot marry this person. I don't have there's nothing, I don't like anything about him. And that is even, right after the marriage has been done, though not consummated. And sometimes after consummation of marriage, some people say, no, I don't even feel anything for this person. I hate him. If a person says, I hate him, I can't stand her, in Yoruba, they will say, mo fe, o shagba mo fun e. Shall you understand? Meaning that, if I'm willing to give you something and you're refusing it, there's nothing we can do about it. I can't force you. I can't force feed you to have this. So these are some of the reasons why we say that, okay, fine. In some cases, marriages, we just have to let them cool off and let them, be dissolved because the two parties, they're not willing to make it work. And sometimes, obviously, one party is confirming that I don't want it anymore. So devoid of all the problems that could, arise within a marriage. And believe me, these problems could be a lot. They're super flaws. They are so much. Some people are still willing to bend and keep on with the marriage. And some people, when the marriages are meant to be dissolved, they'll still keep on. There's one that I know of a lady that got married, to a man, very, very, he's narcissist, is an abuser, it's everything. Anyway, eventually, he killed her. So sometimes, maybe the question you want to ask is that sometimes there's some people that need to leave a marriage, and they're not leaving out of fear or out of the fact that they're worthless. It's only people outside that can see that this is your marriage, you cannot go on with it. And it's only parents that can intervene in this. And most of the times when you intervene, the narcissist has already captured, his prey or her prey, such that the person cannot even, leave the four walls of a marriage unless she dies. So for those ones, they're very sorry cases, but they do happen. But like I said, all marriages are repairable, except, of course, the two parties are not willing, or perhaps one party is completely unwilling to go on with the marriage.
Jazakumullah Karen, thank you so much for that. We have a few questions in the chat box, so I'll start with the first one that came in. So we have here, how best can a man manage a very jealous woman who never believes in the husband and always criticizes him, especially when they're two in his house? I'm not sure I understand when they are two in the house. Maybe the person means when there's someone else in, I don't know. But how best can a man manage a very jealous woman who doesn't believe him and always criticize him? So we can take that.
Okay, so see, the thing with jealousy is that it's a normal emotion. And remember that I told you about controlling emotions. Yeah. Now, it's not everybody that can regulate their emotions properly. It's not everybody. It's not a gift that, everybody can manage. And also understand that we come from different backgrounds. And that's the thing with marriage. It's two people coming from different backgrounds trying to make things work, right? Sometimes it works perfectly well, and sometimes it doesn't, right? So now this wife we're talking about is coming from a certain background, has experienced certain things, seen certain things within her environment, and of course, she's carrying that baggage of fear into the marriage. Now, any sign, because when you're carrying the baggage of fear into your marriage, it means that there's signals to those fear. There's some things you're going to see in other people or your significant other that will make you remember that, oh, this is a signal that I saw in so and so. So it's most likely going to be the same thing that's going to happen to me. So that instigates jealousy immediately. Right? For a person like that, it is you cannot handle it, but you can let her see a therapist. Now, what the therapist is going to do is going to let her share all her fears, all the fears she has. And remember, you're not going to be there. So it's going to be easy for her to share her fears with the therapist. And there are ways to let her look at her fears with another eyes, such that she's not threatened by those fears again. So like I said, it is better for the person, for your wife to see, a therapist. Very, very important. They're not too expensive. A lot of people are investing in them now because, it makes you take another look at the way you behave, at your past experiences, how your past experiences are influencing or perhaps disturbing your present situation. Like, for instance, the situation of this brother that is saying, God, my wife is so jealous. And again, I have to now come back to you. What are the things what are those things you're putting together to make her jealous? Right? What are you doing that is making her jealous? What are those things that you say that makes her jealous? Is she jealous that you're going to have another wife, or are you being too friendly with some female friends? That could cause jealousy in women. So you see, it is not one person having a problem. It's usually two people having a problem. Like I said earlier, it is very, very important, honestly, that today I am wise, I'm changing myself. What are the things you can change as a man to reduce a jealousy? What are those things you can change? Because you don't know. There's some things you're doing that you're doing. What are those things you're doing that you can change? What are those things you cannot change? Even though we're going to put her through therapy, but you too as well would have to go through therapy to understand those things that are bothering your wife. But I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Just happen like her. So I'll move on to the next question here. I'm really trying to select the questions that maybe you haven't touched on in your talk, because there are a few of them and we might not be able to take everything.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next one I'll take is, how does a couple achieve financial stability when spouses have different spending appetites and financial priorities?
Well, that is very simple. Well, the first thing I'm going to ask you, do both of you work? Yes, that is number one. Do both of you work? Do both of you have, what's this thing called? A joint project account. Now, the reason why I always encourage a joint project account is not a joint account that both of you pull in your finances in. No, it's a joint project account, meaning that, we have a project. Because if you don't dream together, right, you can't achieve much. Now, if you do dream together, it means that, okay, fine, we'll have a joint project account. Say, for instance, you want to Jackma. And you know that, let us first of all look at the finances. What are the costs of us moving away or relocating from Nigeria to, say, UK? What are the things involved financially? Now you list all the financial commitments, that this thing is going to go up from your daily finances, and you write it down. And from both of you, right? Say, for instance, this is just me, say, for instance, it's 20 million, right? And both of you are earning certain amounts, and you say, okay, fine, we'll be putting certain amounts in this account towards this our project of moving out of Nigeria. It could be another project. It could be a project of both of you going for Hajj. If you say, okay, fine, I'll be putting 100,000 in this account. Please, you'll be putting 20,000 in this account. Whatever else she does with that money, you know that she's pitching into something, right? She or he might have a very high financial appetite. But if it's a man, it's always very, very, very delicate because they always feel that they own their money. Unfortunately, they don't. Their money is for everybody. And the woman's money is for herself. So for a man, you have to really massage his ego and let him see the need for you to have certain projects together. Like I said, the project doesn't have to be building a house. It could be. It doesn't have to be relocating. It could be as well. It could be something as, fun as traveling, to Dubai, to Turkey, and then you have to pull money together to make this thing work. Another thing, of course, is that you can decide if this man is or this woman is a spendthrift. There's some cardinal things in your life that needs to be taken care of when they need to be taken care of. Say health. It means that you have to have a health insurance. Very, very important. So if anything happens, you're not thinking, God, it's not about anything. You understand? So very important you have that. It's also very important that, the person that is not a spendthrift, between the two of you, you will have I don't like savings. I don't, because the way the economic meltdown is going on, it reduces our naira almost to nothing. So for instance, if you had 200,000 naira in your account last year, it's no more 200,000 because what does it command in pounds, or what does it command in dollar? So really, I always prefer people trying to save in either you save in a certain currency or you save, with investments. So the other person that is not a spendthrift should try to save in investment. So it means that if you're going to relinquish 100,000 towards your saving towards certain investments, you do that every month so that it will not, your family will not crash. That's the only advice I can give you at this moment.
Thank you so much for that. I think that pretty much answers the question. Moving on, this is a more personal question. So the person says, please, how can we work around with engaging oral sex in marriages without doing the haram bargains? Is it permissible or not?
Okay, so the thing with oral sex is that, there's nowhere in the Hadith or the Quran that talks about this. What the Quran says is that you can enter your wife, from where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters. You can do any style you want, so long as it is entering into your wife, right? Now, oral sex, I am always very wary of it for so many reasons. For health reasons, if your husband perhaps, without you knowing, has a disease, any sort of STD, you can have that in your throat or in your guts as well, just by, immersing his manhood in your mouth, a manhood in your mouth, so, it's funny because I think it's just one person. And another thing is that it's just one person enjoying it. You understand? So I try as much as possible not to discuss it because it's not something that is of great liking to me. And I've tried to check, is it allowable? Some people say, well, so long as both of you enjoy it, it's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, I think you should do a bit of research on it and, think of the health implications. And there are other ways, to handle your husband without putting his manhood in your mouth. You could use your hands to massage his manhood. You could, so many other things that you could do. Because I know sometimes when you're in your period, they still want to have intimacy with you, but of course there's a barrier. So there are other ways you could do. You could use your hand. You could massage him. You could do quite a lot of things. But try as much as possible. This is me. Trying to be careful. Not to put his manhood in your mouth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jazakumullah Karen. Next question. Let me see, we have. So we have, how can one attain emotional stability where there's a spouse that is more in tune with negative emotions?
You see, like every other thing, right? Nothing starts from something, doesn't start from nothing. Everything starts from something. And usually the background of the person is very, very important. I've counseled someone, and from the way they were doing, I knew that, this guy is definitely the controller of this relationship. And, few questions I asked the lady, she said, he abuses me. I said verbally or physically. I said, no, not physically, but he abuses me. When we're coming, I still call me stupid, and this is the time, they're not even married yet, and the first thing I asked the guy was, are you the first child? He says, yes. Are you responsible for taking care of your siblings and your parents? He says, yes. So sometimes, the background of the person, if you're saddled with certain responsibilities and you have not been taught to be humble in discharging these responsibilities, right? It could make you a very negative person. And depending on the kind of family he had before you started off your family, are they very negative? What kind of people are they? How do they think? What kind of thought process, do they have? Are they kind naturally, towards people? Do they show gratitude? These are things that we have to ask. But I mean, you're in this already. And I do not put it past a therapy. I always, encourage people to do therapy. It is wonderful if you can do a therapy, see a good psychotherapist, that will be able to look inward, make you look inward and look, to the background, basis of, is what they do is try to get to the roots, of something instead of just cutting it on the head. They get to the root. So you understand what the root is and you're able to, of course, manage better. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Jazakumullah Karen. I love how you are giving brief responses to them also. So it's very straight to the point.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. We have one here that says, how can one manage a spouse that has a perfectionist personality? What assistance could be given to a married couple? Okay, I think this is multiple questions in one. Okay, so that was the first question. Then there's also another one that says, what assistance could be given to a married couple that has grown apart?
Okay, I mean, from growing apart, it is always a deliberate. Well, it is. I won't say deliberate. It is something you did without knowing is going to turn into growing apart. And growing apart could mean a lot of things. Are you living together? Are you living in the same house? Does it travel back and forth? I mean, these are questions that before I can answer, it would, for me to have an insight. Where you live together and you're going apart, a lot of things will make you grow apart. Either you're stonewalling. You're stonewalling, it means that you've created a barrier between you and your husband. Like I said earlier, some people do not even talk. They sleep on the same bed every day, just so that the children can see them, behaving like husband and wife, but they don't talk. They don't even say salams to each other, and, the thing about such situation is that when time passes on them, it becomes the norm. You just get used to it. And it's as if you're living with a stranger. The moment you feel you're living with a stranger, then it is not nice. Who is a perfectionist? A perfectionist is one that wants things in a certain way. In a certain way. Not in a perfect way, really. In a certain way. And what causes this? It could be OCD, somebody wanting things in a certain way all the time. I used to have a boss, when you're coming into his house, apart from the fact that you're going to, leave your shoes outside, even if it's raining, you put newspaper so that you not put your bare feet on his tiles. So I mean, this is who he is, but it's crazy. There's some people that there's some things you can change, but I just feel that there should be a middle ground. I love middle grounds and I love compromises and I love negotiations as well. There could be a negotiations. How far gone is he into being a perfectionist? Because what you call a perfectionist could just be a normal person, because I don't really know both of you. What you call a perfectionist could be someone coming from a home that they do things in certain ways. Sure, you understand, in certain ways. You know, I know someone that'll tell you that, okay, fine, in my house, we don't take parts of meat. It's only meat alone we take, only meat. In my house, this is what we do. In my house, this is what we do. In my house, this is what we do. But then they came to a compromise. Some of the things you do in your house, we'll still maintain it. That not taking parts of meat is not going to work. We're going to mix meat. Sure, you understand? So it depends on your negotiation skills, because you really have to negotiate things out and list those things. Because when you generalize, you have called him a perfectionist, for instance, and you've generalized. That is saying that, you know, from top to bottom is a perfectionist. But let us look at those things that he exhibits this kind of attitude towards. Write those things down. All those things that you feel that, God, this is the perfectionist in him. You know, in eating, there's a way he places his fork, or there's a way he wants his fork, or there's a fork particularly that he wants. If you bring another fork, he's not going to eat that food. You know, so write those things down, right? Have a discussion with him. I mean, he should shell out some of these things, or tell you those things he cannot do without. And you should be ready to take, you know, some of these. It's nice to negotiate within marriages, because he knows that I've given and is waiting for you also to give, right? You know, so the root cause of perfectionism is usually from the home it's coming from. And you know, most often times when we get married, before we get married, we don't do the due diligence. We just enter marriage like that. Sure, you understand? We don't know these people. We don't even do any findings at all. We don't know anything about them, you know. And when we get married, you know, we face the problems, you know, they have not been able to solve in their house, because they're going to bring this problem back into the nuclear family that both of you are going to form. So, yeah, I hope I've answered all the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jazakumullah Karen. So we'll just take 2 more questions and then wrap up this session. So the next question I have here is, how does one handle a spouse who always threatens the partner with divorce?
Threaten you with divorce?
Yeah.
Well, if it threatens you with divorce, it's fine now. You know, the only thing, see, I don't like threats. A lot of people do not like threats, because it puts you on the edge. You know, if anybody threatens you with divorce, it's telling you that there's no other person for you but me. And if you go out there, there'll be nobody but for you, right? It is still part of being not humble. You know, like I said earlier, that if you want to become a pilgrim of love in marriage, the first condition is that you make yourself humble like dust and ashes, right? A lot of people do not know the kind of emotional turmoil they give the other party when they threaten them with the divorce. And we have seen this in the time of Rasulullah, when a husband told his old wife that she's like to him the back of his mother, you know, and because of that, Surah Mujadila. Okay, you need counseling. Both of you need to, you know, see a counselor, and it has to know the magnitude of the threat that it poses to you. That's number 1. Number 2, I always like to look at a problem as a double-edged sword. For a man to say, I'm going to divorce you, or I may divorce you, what have you done? What are those things you're doing? You know, and I'll say again, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. What are you doing as an individual, as a woman? What are you not doing? It could be something you're doing or something you're not doing that is instigating this harsh and abrasive and acidic statement of threatening you with divorce all the time. You know, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Why is it, you know, because it is 2 ways. I don't like the threats, but what is the cause of the threat? Why is it, you know, you cannot just wake up and say, see you, I'm going to divorce you if you're not careful. There's something going on. So address those things. And when you post questions, always say the truth. You know, what are the things you're doing? What are those things you're doing that, you know, is not favorable to your husband? And if you both are able, you know, to go on these 2 parts, that is the part of a pilgrim who who is going to make himself very humble, like a dust or ashes, and the past of the person that is willing to change him or herself. And I think you will not have a problem. I do not want to castigate him, even though what he's saying is huge, even in the sight of Allah, right? But then both of you should come to something amicable. I love people going to therapists, to counselors, to talk things out and proffer solutions to problems they're encountering in their marriages. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Jazakumullah khairan. And now our last and final question for today would be, how best do couples manage physical separation, like living in different cities or countries due to economic or social reasons?
Okay, so you're talking about the Japa syndrome.
Yes, so a situation, maybe the husband is in the UK and the wife is still in Nigeria or the like.
How do you manage it?
Yeah.
It's hard to manage because, I mean, if for instance, you've been living together for a long time, and then you do decide to relocate, and one person out of finances, because it's usually out of lack of finances, that one person has to go first. So when one person goes first, it means that you have to be very understanding. You might expect a lot of communication. Initially, it might be like that, but eventually it will not, because working there is different from working in Nigeria. They work very hard. Some of them are going to go to school, couple will work. So, you have to look for time to discuss, look for time to see each other. And thank God for the social media and the WhatsApp. You can do FaceTime if you're using Apple. You can go on WhatsApp and do video calls, just so that you can see yourself. And luckily enough, I mean, when you're doing most of these video calls, you can attach it to the television, so you'll be more relaxed, and then you can talk freely with each other. Now, another thing people do, is there can be romantic on the internet, but I try as much as possible to tell people, see, no matter how romantic on the internet you are, please do not get nude, when you're video calling yourselves, because I mean, we know that we're almost like naked when we are on the social media. Anything can happen. So do not go nude. Do not do things that will compromise your integrity. Somebody can pick up something and they'll use it. Do not send nude pictures to each other. Don't do all those things. But you can talk a lot, and you can, there's so many things you can do on the kidney, and this helps him, and it gives him a safe space in his mind that, yes, I'm still with my wife. And of course, relationships like this are very difficult to maintain. The only thing I'll advise and pray that is that Allah grants both of you enough finances so that you can meet each other up again. I mean,
thank you so much for that. Jazakumullah khairan. I think that's the last question we'll take. The audience would like to have your contact. I don't know if you feel comfortable maybe sharing an email or maybe your social media or any form of contact that they can reach you personally after the session.
No problem. I have, I think my contact is with Micah. Yes, my email is Micah. Okay. And my WhatsApp number is also with Micah.
Okay, I just wanted to get like a confirmation that we could share.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you so much. So I would just like to say a big thank you to you for taking out the time to joining us, for joining us this Sunday, and may Allah reward you. May He continue to increase your knowledge. May He continue to give you more platforms and even bigger platforms to be able to share your knowledge. And I pray that everyone that's also joined us is able to take one or two things that they can apply in their personal lives to improve their lives, their marriages, inshallah. And can I just ask that you give us a quick closing prayer and we can wrap up the session?
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His kindness. We thank Him first for making us Muslims. We thank Him not just for making us any kind of Muslim, but conscious Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala count us among those will enter his Jannah. Our efforts in this life are only geared towards his pleasure. We pray that he would do everything for us in such a way that will meet his pleasure. And we seek his refuge from everything that will lead us to his displeasure. We beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to please make our marriages, which is the bedrock of the Ummah, make our marriages strong and devoid of the evil suggestion of shaitan. We beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save all of us from Jahannam. We beg Allah to make us successful both in this life and the hereafter. And I beg of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our dead Muslims, overlook all their shortcomings, and make their graves resting places for them. I beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of his mercy to continue to bless the organizers of Micah and all the good things they do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a shield for them on the day of Yom Kiyama. And for us, that's little people that come on this platform to share the little knowledge we have. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it useful for those, all of you people that have been listening, useful in a way that it would draw you closer to Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us individually and collectively. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا عليك توكلنا وعليك أنبنا وعليك المصير اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين آمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون السلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, Amin. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience too for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much.
Zainab.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, Mariam.
Hi.
Hi, Kachi. Assalamu alaikum. Please,
Well done.
everybody, I don't know if you have, thank you so much. I don't know if you have Mrs. Olabiwanu's contacts. People are still asking. Olabiwanu, yes.
I don't have it, no.
Okay, so I would. I'm not sure if Mr. Damonle is still here.
What's the Micah email address? You can tell them, or the WhatsApp number. Tell them to send a message to the Micah WhatsApp number.
Okay, so everyone that is asking for the facilitators contact, please just send a message to Micah's WhatsApp and we'll send it to you.
Exactly.
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Jazakumullah for joining. Bye.
Bye.